Starfield easily does absolutely nothing right in the slightest. And one of the few things that we don't really talk about enough or appreciate enough in the grand spectacle of failure that is Starfield and Bethesda in general is the story. Because you see, no one actually knows what Starfield's story is. Everyone just knows it's NASA punk, whatever that means. And it's understandable considering that more than 50% of people didn't make it 2 hours into the game and they quit because the game was just too goddamn trash to play. But Starfield does have a story, and I do know of some of it, I guess. And it's really bad, but you don't know how really bad is it. So, I found something good today, okay? A rare look into how bad Starfield's story is. What's even happening there? Did anything even happen there? No. The quick answer is honestly no.
It's my turn to talk about Starfield, I guess. What is there to say about this game that hasn't been said by just about everybody else? Starfield is one of the weakest entries of a Bethesda game, if not.
Now, to be fair, 300 Starfield bad videos later, I'm still finding a lot of negative things to say about Starfield, and I ain't stopping anytime soon. I'll be an old man waving my fist at the sky, angrily telling probably no one, but someone will hear, okay? It's going to be written in the halls of time that I was still angry then at Starfield being this much of a disappointment.
The weakest one they've ever made outside of 76, but I can hardly even count that. The biggest shortcoming of Starfield,
76 doesn't count because it didn't even have a story.
in my eyes, outside of all the glaring technical issues, is the mess of the world building and the story writing. Now, I'm going to be heavily critical about Starfield, but I do have to say something, and that is,
Surprise, surprise, someone didn't like Starfield. Oh no, think of the children.
I don't really even hate the game, or Bethesda as a whole. They've made some of my favorite games of all time. Fallout 3 was my first exposure to the RPG genre when I was a kid. I want this to feel more like an open creative writing discussion, but I know I'm going to spend time dunking on the game like everybody else does. This is a game that I have put hundreds of hours into, trying to find as many things as I could.
Listen, boys, you should never be beholden to something that was, okay? Bethesda once was a company that made good things that we liked, Oblivion, Morrowind, and whatnot. Fallout 3, even amongst all these things. Fallout 4 wasn't even that bad, but now Bethesda is a former. It's a shadow of its former self. At best way to describe it. They're talentless. They don't know what's happening. They don't understand. They literally blame us for being too stupid to understand the genius writing what they are currently cooking up in their labs, which is obviously all bull, hope, and complete crap. To be completely honest with you, so I liked Bethesda once, but I'm not gonna be beholden to that. Oh, they once made a good game, so I must love them forever. Blizzard also did good things once, and look at them now. Complete disappointment, destroying franchise after franchise after franchise. You don't have to have this unreasonable, completely out of the blue patriotism towards a game company. You don't have to have that. You can easily just like them or dislike them for the slightest of reasons. Or honestly, no reason at all if you feel like it. No one can shame you for that. Do what you will, do what you want.
To like about it, and also find a lot of things that I did not like about it. Starfield has a lot of good concepts going for it, but the way they applied those concepts might have been.
Oh no, this sounds like the Starfield had good bones argument. This is very popular in the Diablo 4 community. It's like, oh, Diablo 4 has good bones, good basics. Yeah. Everything technically can be made into a good game, but it somehow never does manifest itself, right? So, Starfield didn't really have good concepts. A good concept that we're talking about is, oh, it had worlds and space and you could do stuff in them. That's it. It did nothing with it, though. Having a good concept and executing it poorly, or in Starfield's case, completely fucking it up, doesn't mean that doesn't give them any sort of reverence. Having good concept means nothing.
The polar opposite of what could have made this game's story so much more interesting. Now, before anything, I want to say that all this is my opinion. I am not a professional writer. I will not have super in-depth details about how I wish quests were written or completely make up my own plot line for this. I am just wanting to bring up some core concepts and beliefs I have about the main narrative and the faction narratives of this game and how they could have been handled differently or expanded on to create a more immersive and impactful experience for the players. I want this to be an open forum for everybody to talk about the things that they wish they had seen. Everybody has their own ideas for how stories should have been connected or where they wanted the plot to go. So please feel free to talk about it in the comments. And now I will get started on the ideas that really make me wonder what was the point of Starfield's story and what could have been done differently. The number one thing I want to get off my chest about this game's narrative is why does everything take place in the complete wrong spot of this universe's timeline? I cannot believe a choice-driven RPG is going to tell us that there was a war that happened and that there was a faction of people that worshipped a celestial snake. Every single moment of importance in the Starfield universe has already happened, and when you start and finish the game, everything will be before that.
Oh, he actually has a point, I guess. The fact that our setting is in a timeline where all the cool shit happened. And technically there's no immediate conflict or nothing. Yeah, that is a criticism I have never heard before of the story. Interesting. But yeah, that is obviously actually kind of a bad setting, I guess. The fact that nothing is really happening in the universe. You're just kind of cruising through it. There's no, need to be fast for anything technically.
My best guess for why this even happened was that they wanted to tell the story of the artifacts and make them feel like the main priority versus all the geopolitical events of the Starfield universe. But I can't see why they would make that decision. The politics of RPGs and the factions around them
Is the best
and how
thing.
they impact the world building are some of the most important factors to making a world feel immersive and having important choices to make. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a game that does this perfectly. The war between Sigismund and Wenceslas provides a perfect backdrop to the events of the game because each character has their own allegiances, motives, and it creates complex dynamics between the characters and leads to events that feel meaningful in a grander scheme while only really telling one person's story.
Yep.
Starfield even had this concept in their back pocket with the war between the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective, but instead of placing us in a wartime period between those two factions, everything's pretty much already been solved.
Yeah, and the worst part is, I honestly don't really understand what's even the difference between them because there is no difference. It's just the thing about the backdrop is nothing's really happening in the current now in Starfield. No one knows what kind of magical conflicts are happening because nothing's really happening. But then you have the lore of things happening previously, and that lore is these guys versus these guys, and what's the difference between them? I don't know. What's the whatever? I don't know. I mean, one of them is supposed to probably be capitalism, and the other one is supposed to be like freedom, aka communism or something like. I don't know. I don't know. It's like, what is the difference even? Okay, does it matter who won because we don't really know what they even stand for? I mean, Freestar Collective is supposed to be free, right? Okay, okay, I guess. So they're the good guys? I mean, I literally have only the names to go by, not what actually happened.
All the dust has settled on the conflict. Some characters will mention the war in passing, and there will be a couple of things that you can do, like that interactive museum dedicated to the war, but it doesn't have that same oomph as.
The interactive museum is one of the stupidest choices ever made in gaming, in my opinion, okay? Because the interactive museum literally tells you in, like, a couple of poor sentences what has happened in this universe, and it's like, none of this really matters, though, right? Because it's, like, in the past, right? Yep. So you kind of get the story of the universe that you live in, but it's like none of it really matters. Even if it was active, even if these conflicts were active, they don't really matter because you know nothing about these things.
Actually being there. This has even been present in previous Bethesda games. Skyrim, after 12 years of discussion, it still goes on of what people think would have been better for Skyrim, the Imperials or the Stormcloaks. The correct answer is the Imperials, by the way.
True.
They should have used that again. It gets people to talk. It gets people to have in-depth conversations about your world rather than just telling us that it happened and that there is some, quote, tension around the two governments. But the tension never leads to anything tangible and is only passively referenced between characters. And then, even if you get those references between characters, you'll only see them once and not really have any consequences for the choices that you make for those characters. Why are we forced to play the game after these events take place that are so much more interesting than the story that they are giving us currently? I think the biggest part of
This is the problem, see? This is a fallacy. These things seem more interesting than the current story because the current story is pure slop. No one likes it. And anything even vaguely vague, I guess would be the right choice. Wow, what a sentence. Is more interesting than the current story. This, for example, House Maroon, Shattered Space. Bethesda probably did not want to make actually an expansion about this because it's garbage. The reason why they most likely made Shattered Space was because House Maroon was the only thing that people ever talked positively before the expansion about Starfield. So there's this mystical House Maroon that Zealots and they like space snakes. Woo! And considering the story in the game was so trash, something that literally has no information about it but the most vaguest things that make it sound even remotely cool is gonna be the best thing. So, this is just House Maroon 2.0. The idea that this story would be better is just House Maroon 2.0 because anything sounds better what we currently have. And the more vague and grandiose it sounds, like a bunch of people versing a space serpent. Sounds cool sounds cool, you know. The cover of the book was cool, so you know, you kind of want it. But the reality is the moment you get it, it's probably going to turn to shit because it's Bethesda.
the flaw of Starfield's narrative of feeling like there's no point to it is that Bethesda has this obsession with player agency and the ability to experience the game has to offer in one singular playthrough. I think this might be the biggest glaring issue with their design philosophy, because I understand wanting the players to do everything as it's an easy thing to get into with a mass audience, which is now what Bethesda's core ethos is when it comes to sales. However, this severely hinders the capabilities of telling a compelling story as you lose the ability to have meaningful choice and consequence outside of self-contained mini-stories, which is basically what factions have become now.
True. No consequence. Join any faction. See what happens. No one cares. Oh, do this bad thing against this faction. Well, they're still gonna take you in open arms because reasons. When no consequence matters, nothing matters, and when nothing matters, it's boring and dull. Simple as that.
Being able to do every single part of a faction's quest line without any interference or questioning from those factions feels completely pointless. Why am I able to become King Pirate and at the same token a key Vanguard fighter for the UC, which I had just previously betrayed by taking Crix's legacy for myself? At least the Freestar have the decency to be somewhat disconnected from the Crimson Fleet, so I don't feel like the faction leaders just got fucking neuralized when I start doing bad things. But this independence comes at the cost of making the Freestar questline also feel kind of ultimately pointless, because once again, choice and consequence is hard to feel in a game where everything is in its own little contained bubble. And that's only one half of the issue. The faction questlines, I mean, yeah, I guess they're fine on their own in a little bubble, but not having any impact and bearing on the main questline kind of makes them feel inconsequential and boring. But the main experience that you're looking for with the main quest line is somehow even more boring and uncompelling for players that are looking for this in-depth RPG experience. The main quest line of Starfield is one that asks 1,000 questions, and it does give you an answer, but it's so unfulfilling, and it just feels like they ran out of time and were just building the...
I'm not even sure what the answer he means here is. It's like nothing really per se gets answered. In Starfield, nothing really per se gets answered, if we're being real.
entire game around this concept of New Game Plus, so that you could keep playing one save until the heat death of the universe. The quest of collecting all the artifacts, and also these two goobers, the hunter and the emissary, showing up, I don't really understand its purpose because the game doesn't try to answer those questions.
Yeah, I also absolutely. You know what I absolutely love about this? It's the fact that one is called the hunter and one is called the emissary, and that's not really explained. That has that like has literally no significance or anything. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just randomly the hunter. I'm the emissary. Why? I don't know. It's just like I don't know.
I understand its purpose because the game doesn't try to answer those questions. The lack of questions being answered is why I'm calling this what is the point of Starfield's story? Because it ultimately doesn't answer that own question. It makes you spend several hours, maybe 40 hours of exploring and finding all these artifacts and talking to the hunter and the emissary, and I still don't.
Yeah, it's like the hunter doesn't have really character motivations. The emissary doesn't really have character motivations. It's kind of really ass. You know what's my favorite part about the Starfield story? How little sense it makes if we take one step back and look at it from the side, okay? So every artifact and every bunch of magical space dust that you need to go through a bunch of times to get dragonborn powers. I mean space dragon powers. I mean space dragonborn powers is in a gravitational anomaly. I mean, every single ship in the universe that as far as we can tell, has the ability to detect these things. So, how the hell has no one figured them out that they exist? Questionable. Real questionable, in fact. How does no one know that they are? And what makes this even more funny, and this is just how poor the world building is the fact that sometimes these magical artifacts of unimaginable power, or no power at all, because we don't really know what the artifacts are, that's kind of magical key that does no one knows what exactly. What's the point of the visions? Don't know, actually. But sometimes these places are right next to research outposts. I mean, literally, an oil drill is gonna be 5 steps away from this place of unreasonable power, and it's like, do the people right over next door not see the, floaty, flying fucking rocks here and never care or ask why the hell that is like that? The world is just also so poorly built. It's not just the main story, it's how you experience the main story in the world. It seems completely disconnected and unreal. Okay? When I'm supposed to find a giant artifact of power, okay? I'm pretty upset when it's on a planet where there is just a one magical 7-Eleven and it's right next to my magical artifact of power with gravity defying floating rocks that every ship in the galaxy can detect because that's a default thing for them. Yeah, makes the game kind of feel pretty shitty, honestly. Okay?
Really know anything. It's a story that my choices don't really matter. I've met characters, my impact on their lives is little to none because ultimately all I am doing is just building to play the game again. And I don't know why anybody would want to play the game multiple times if you don't get any answers for anything.
Yep.
Like, how did the Unity come to be? Where did the artifacts come from? Why?
Yeah, I mean, these are, by the way, these are, I knew he's going to ask something like this. Like, these are the basic questions because there's no deeper questions to be asked. And if you have a story and there's no deeper question than this to be asked, like, what is the Unity? Why does it exist? Like, it's the baseline just creation question of, oh, why does it even exist in the first place? It's like, okay, when you barely can have that and there's nothing deeper to ask, it's like, yeah, your story's shit.
Why are the hunter and the emissary fighting through time and space continually? It makes no sense to give people these questions and then give them an ending that is just, hey.
Actually, there is an explanation why the hunter and emissary are fighting. The hunter thinks that the artifact power should only be given to those who search for it. Which is as retarded as it sounds, if you're wondering. You're not alone. And the emissary is... The artifact power should be for anyone who finds it. Which is retarded, in case you were wondering, and pretty much actually the exact same thing that the hunter is kind of doing. So both of them are fighting effectively for no reason if you think about it. One wants to limit the access to this power because not everyone is worthy of this power. Which doesn't make sense because people need to put in effort to actually acquire this power. And the other one wants this power to be accessible to people, which doesn't make sense because no one knows about this power and they need to put effort into accessing it. And there's other Starborn, by the way, that exist. And no one even actually talks about that. You know, it's like, okay, I understand. Okay, if I accept that these shitty motivations for the hunter and emissary are legit, which they aren't, why the hell are there other Starborn that are working together with the hunter to kill you? like why? Shouldn't he be against them? Like, what the hell is that? Why? How does any of that make sense? It doesn't. It doesn't. So stop thinking about it.
Go play the game again. It makes no sense. I'm not going to give a full rundown of every single quest in this line because genuinely I can't even remember half of them, but not a single part of the story truly involves the UC or the Freestar or even the Crimson Fleet.
Yep.
In the main story, they might as well not even exist outside of being a backdrop for some of the quests that you do. At least Skyrim made you tackle the Civil War eventually.
Yeah, I mean, he's not joking here, okay? The UC is a backdrop for like a couple of characters. The Crimson Fleet is a backdrop for one character, and House Rune is a backdrop for another character. Oh my God, we're such a group of diverse people, and look at us, we all have our own goals and difference, which is a very woke propaganda point, by the way. If you did not figure that one out, you obviously did, though. Oh, we're such different people, but we come together to do this one thing, and you know. We all actually have the same opinions. That's also a thing that happens. You can take any companion that you want, but they're a carbon copy of every other companion's likes and dislikes. No one likes stealing. No one likes killing innocents, and that's pretty much it. That's kind of actually literally it.
Even if it was just working out a temporary truce until you felt like kicking the world, like, you know, the war off. But what I want to know is why they completely neglected these factions and just had them ignore the universe-shattering discovery of space magic. Yeah, that's just Constellation's thing. You know, this group of nerds, they figured out how to predict the future and slow down time. Let's just leave them at that. We got farmers that are being extorted, man. We really need to worry about that. You are telling me not a single leading member of these two main factions that went to war with each other over material power things are not interested in the abilities of space magic?
Well, considering how lackluster and underwhelming it is, it does actually make a lot of sense that they aren't. Because this space magic kind of literally useless most of the time.
That's ridiculous. That is completely nonsense to me. Because the hunter and the emissary have even said to us that they prove that you can get these powers. It's not just you being a chosen one. You're the chosen one in this game because you're the protagonist. But that implies that everybody can do this. It's a multiversal war that is going on. People are fighting this fight every single timeline. And yet, the game insists that you are the only one that can obtain these powers. How does that make any sense? I feel like that's just such wasted potential.
The game doesn't insist on it, but it actually fucks its own story up. So the thing about this is, the beginning you find this artifact and your boss is like, Dusty, touch it, come on, touch it, lick it, and you're like, okay, boss. And then you get some kind of vision that no one actually even understands what's the point of it, right? But that vision makes you special. Well, actually not. The guy who picks you up bad, he also has... No, wait, someone else had a vision. One of the people in Constellation had a vision. Because you see, you get a vision when you're the first person to touch the artifact. So obviously it makes a lot of fucking sense when the second artifact you find is a hood ornament for some rando dude who has no idea what he's holding. He just thinks it's an expensive hood ornament, but you still get the vision. Yes. Bethesda literally, and this is literally like 2.5 hours into the game, where you encounter all of this. Yes, Bethesda literally could not keep their own stupid story straight. The mechanics of their own stupid, useless universe coherent for 2 hours, effectively. Until it all broke apart because, again, everyone, first person to touch the artifact gets a vision. This artifact has been touched by a billion trillion people, and somehow you're still the one who's getting the visions. Yeah, it makes sense. No, it doesn't.
When you could have factions fighting over these powers and then creating the unity, creating their own timelines where they win everything. It gives so much influence and so much direction to these factions, and yet they feel like they don't exist in the main story. Ultimately, everything about Starfield's main story
because they
sort
don't.
of just feels like an afterthought of how do we get people to the end game, new game plus mechanic. It doesn't feel like they legitimately tried to make a story that was compelling for players to want to learn and understand more. It just felt like, let's get the players to the finish line. That way they can experience the fun little gimmick like alternate universes, and they can somewhat see the effects of their choices in the factions. If they were going to insist on making a world and a story that doesn't really answer the questions about the artifacts, why not change the story to be something that at least gives the player a little bit of understanding of maybe the characters and the factions of the world? If we aren't going to learn who...
Why would you want that, Chud? Don't you want a universe where everything is Sarah Morgan? Or Sarah Morgan is a cactus? Yeah, that's that. Pretty deep writing, Bethesda. Also, the main story, skip is beautiful if you don't want to do it. It's like, okay, you join Constellation, you go to them, and you're like, I have traveled from another universe here. I know everything that's happening, so we can kind of skip the pleasantries because reasons. And everyone in Constellation's like, yeah, checks out, yeah, that checks out. Okay, wait, checks out, okay? Don't think about it, just checks out, okay? Beautiful.
Created the artifacts. Let's at least have a world where we want to know who controls them and how we want them to control them and what they're going to do with those artifacts instead of just giving us plainly nothing. Starfield truly had the potential to be something akin of a Fallout New Vegas 2. And that's the kind of thing I want to build on. Is the direction for the story that I would have liked to seen is that Starfield has all these pieces of a template to make something similar to Fallout New Vegas, but they didn't use any of it, and instead they decided to tell a story that just answered nothing, showed nothing, told the player nothing. The first thing I would change is putting the UC and the Freestar at odds again, just like NCR and Caesar's Legion. Active wartime with skirmishes and having reputation for the factions. Having two major factions at war gives the player a choice of who they want to support and wait.
Oh, this is the how I would fix the storyline of... Okay. Yeah. Okay, listen. Putting the factions in conflict already makes a more interesting storyline. Then you can... I saw a skull here, okay? Then you can put the pirates as a third faction that suddenly comes in and you need to deal with them somehow, or ally maybe with them, and that has negative consequence. There's so many ways that you can make this good, but it doesn't mean you can make it good. Every idea that has, two factions and a protagonist can be made into something amazing. But that doesn't mean Starfield can be fixed. Starfield cannot be fixed. Again, it's easier to make a new game than make Starfield good at this point. Same for World of Warcraft. In any case, Yeah, that was a good noodle. 10 out of 10. Bye. It's a completely new channel, by the way. So, I mean, well, actually, channel's name's It Is Over, which is very true. Completely new channel. Go and subscribe, I guess. 10 out of 10. Bye.